Peace and power elevation. This your girl Tiffany coming through here live in effect. So today I decided to switch the topic up and put my focus into talking about African traditional medicine. And these things are not talked about enough. So there's the constant back and forth about vaccines, insulins, pills, herbs, etc. Did our people practice this, that, and other? So our people have always been practitioners of herbal medicine, but they also was a practitioner of inoculation too. Inoculation is the earliest form of vaccine. Okay, when smallpox came around. So, but a lot of the indigenous culture, they used a lot of herbs. They used a lot of plants because plants serve a purpose. And so they serve multiple purpose, but the main purpose that plants serve the most is medicine. Because what the nutrition that's inside of those plants, the vitamin C, the vitamin D, etc. All those things that you're getting from the plant you need in your body. So I want to put this quote up real fast. This quote says, "Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food." So in other words, that quote in itself, it is true. There is a true statement that food is the form of medicine because your body needs to heal. If your body does not have enough vegetables, enough starches, enough protein, then it's not going to be able to heal. It's not going to be able to survive. Right? So this is why we have to have enough vegetables, enough fruits in our body so our body can be able to heal itself properly. Now, I am for herbal healing, but I'm also for inoculation as well. I'm for the I'm for the excuse me. I am for the healing, but I'm also for inoculation. I support both sides. All right. Because you can't have one without the other. You can't just go and get vaccinated and you're not eating properly. It just won't work for your body. Or you can't just eat just vegetables and fruits, and when there's a certain type of aggressive disease that's going on, you're not taking any medicine for it. Because with that vegetable and fruit, it has certain minerals and it has certain nutrition, but it don't have enough to be able to fight off the virus that might be in your system that you can't. It may not be able to cure it, or it may not do anything. So it's not going to be just good enough just to eat fruits and vegetables. You got to have something there to keep it from attacking the immune system, to like give it a booster as well. So both are needed. And our ancestors understood that. They understood the importance of eating properly, but also taking care of yourself and making sure you have proper medicine as well. So I'm going to present some reading materials. Okay. And I also want to talk a little bit about the medical symbol as well. But let's go ahead, let's look at the reading materials. So let's go into traditional African medicine. So as you can see, what is traditional African medicine? It is a range of traditional medicine discipline involving indigenous herbalism and African spirituality, typically including diviners, midwives, and herbalists. All right, let me go back and read that again. I apologize. So, the traditional African medicine is a range of traditional medicine, discipline involving indigenous herbalism and African spirituality, typically including diviners, midwives, and herbalists. Now, at one point in time, there was a misconception about the people from West Africa that was herbalists. They were looked at as witch doctors or witchcrafters, etc. But they really wasn't witchcrafters or witch doctors in the sense they were herbalists. They were practicing their tradition, but those that was the outsider, the foreigners, they didn't understand that. So they thought these people were demonic or they were evil and they were rebellious, out of control, etc. But that's not what it was. That was just a part of their traditional practice. So, and then goes on to say, practitioner of traditional African medicine claimed to be able to cure a variety of diverse conditions, including cancer, psychiatric disorder, high blood pressure, cholera, most viral disease, epilepsy, asthma, fever, anxiety, depression, being pediatric hyperplasia, urinary tract infection, gout, and healing of wounds and burns, and even Ebola. Okay. So then it goes down to say diagnosis is reached through spiritual means and a treatment is prescribed, usually consisting of a herbal remedy that is considered to have not only healing abilities but also symbolic and spiritual significance. Traditional African medicine, with its belief that illness is not derived from chance occurrence but through spiritual or social imbalance, differing greatly from modern scientific medicine, which is technically and analytically based. In the 21st century, modern pharmaceuticals and medical procedures remain inaccessible to large numbers of African people due to their relatively high cost and concentration of health facilities in urban centers. All right, so this is why these herbalists and doctors still around to this day, because to go to the hospital or any type of medical facility, it will cost a lot of money. So it's cheaper to go to somebody who's a herbalist. So traditional medicine was the dominant medical system for millions of people in Africa prior to the arrival of Europeans who introduced science-based medicine, which was noticeable turning point in the history of this traditional and culture. Herbal medicines in Africa are generally not adequately researched and are weakly regulated. There is a lack of the detailed documentation of the traditional knowledge, which is generally transferred orally. Serious adverse effects can result from misidentification or misuse of healing plants. The geographical reach of this article is sub-Saharan Africa, though of course neighboring medical tradition influence traditional African medicine. All right. So I'm just gonna read part of the paragraph and then I'm gonna go on to the next source. So it goes into the history, talk about the colonial era. So during modern science has considered methods of traditional knowledge as primitive, and under colonial rule, some traditional medicine practices were outlawed. During this time, attempts were also made to control the sales of herbal medicines. For example, as after Mozambique gained independence in 1975, attempts to control traditional medicine went as far as sending diviner healers to re-education camps. As colonialism and Christianity spread through Africa, colonists built general hospitals and Christian missionaries built private ones with the hopes of making headway against the widespread diseases. However, little was done to investigate the legitimacy of the traditional medical practices, despite the obvious roles that the traditional healers played in the basic health needs of their communities. The colonial authorities, along with doctors and health practitioners, continued to shun their contribution. It was also believed that during during times of conflict, people were more likely to resort to supernatural explanations and would seek treatment involving the supernatural. So there were people that would rather go to somebody who did who was the so-called witch doctor and who was the herbalist for answers as far as cure is concerned. But everybody that claims to be herbalists are not certified, and they don't always have the answer to every disease that people encounter or exposed to. So sometimes it is necessary to go to the doctor for certain disease that are widespread, that are part of the pandemic, and get whatever medication they offer to bring about some type of form of regulation and control over the disease, or to keep the pathogen from attacking the immune system, the cells, and things of that nature. So you're not going to always get the exact answer from somebody who is a herbalist. A herbalist can only go by what they speculate. They don't have the clinical research and medical research on a particular disease. So that's the one thing that is a hindrance by dealing with these herbalists, is the lack of clinical research and medical research on a particular virus or a particular epidemic, things like that. And then let's go down to the modern period. So, for various reasons, in the late 20th century, the traditional system of medical care in developing countries underwent a major revival. These countries also realized that modern healthcare systems and the technologies that they are dependent on are not locally manufactured and maintained, thus making them expensive and rendering the population dependent on supply chains that might be erratic or politicized. Due to this in, Due to this interest in integrating traditional African medicine into the continent's national healthcare system has increased, and the use of traditional medical plants is being encouraged in some countries. And African Healer embraced this concept by starting a 48-bed hospital, the first of its kind in Kiwa Mayanga, South Africa, which combines traditional African methods with other alternative medical practices such as homeopathy, iridiology, and traditional Asian medicine. So let's look at what iridiology is. All right, so iridiology is an alternative medicine techniques whose proponents claim that patterns, colors, and other characteristics of iris, which is your eyes, can be examined to determine information about a patient's systematic or systemic health. Practitioners match their own observation to the iris charts, which divides the iris into zones that correspond to specific parts of the human body. Iridiologists see the eyes as windows into the body's state of health. All right, so there is certain places or certain hospitals in these African countries that do rely on scientific research and scientific knowledge, but they also rely on holistic knowledge as well. So the term for that is called integrative medicine. That's what's called integrative. So let me go ahead and let me pull that up. So what is integrative medicine? So integrative medicine is the practice of it's the practice of medicine that focuses on the whole person and make use of all appropriate therapeutic approaches, healthcare professionals, and discipline to achieve optimal health and healing. It combines state of the art conventional medical treatments with other therapies that are carefully selected and shown to be effective and safe. The goal is to unite the best that conventional medicine has to offer with other healing systems and therapies derived from cultures and ideas, both old and new. All right. So, integrative medicine basically saying that, all right, um, you don't have to always take uh prescription medication from the doctors. You can use a little bit of holistic medicine. You can use a little bit of naturopathy or homeopathy if you need to. Or if the homeopathy and the naturopathy medicine doesn't work, you need to go to the doctor and find out. So it's a combination of both. And you have doctors that's like that support the natural healing process, the homeopathy, and that also support people taking over-the-counter medication, prescription medicine, and getting a vaccination, etc. Okay. So let's just go down where it says treatments. So the treatment is the traditional practitioners use a wide variety of treatments ranging from standard medical treatments to the pseudoscientific and magical. Treatments may include fasting, dieting, herbal therapies, bathing, massage, and surgical procedure. Examples of the pseudoscientific treatments include the use of bleed cupping, also wet cupping, followed by herbal ointment and herbal drugs to treat migraines, coughs, abscess, and pleurisy. Okay. And some cultures rub hot herbal ointment across the patient's eyelids to treat headaches. A steaming mixture of herbs is both consumed and inhaled in the treatment of malaria. Fevers are often treated using a steam bath. Vomiting induced by emetics is used to treat alcoholism. Fat of a boa constrictor is used to treat gout and rheumatism and is thought to relieve chest pain when applied topically. Animals are also sometimes used to transfer the illness to afterward or for the manufacture of medicines for zootherapy. For example, the bones of baboons are used to treat arthritis. The terpenoids of the blister beetle are rubbed into the skin as a treatment for skin disease. Okay, so again, these are the things that are used in some of the countries. All right, and then as you can see, medicine plants. So right here, the Pinus africana with strip bark. Okay, so I had a conversation with somebody about this earlier. They were telling me that in certain part of West Africa, they would take the bark of the tree and use that as to make medicine, like such as penicillin and other form of medicines that you inject into people. So they mix that with the ingredients. They break down the components of the nutrition or the ingredients from the tree to put into making the medicine for insulation, etc. So yeah, but here it is. So as you can see, the tree is kind of stripped because they took the bark of it. All right. And as you can see, this is a picture right here. Preparing and drying out freshly dug traditional medicine. Okay. But let's go down here where it says, there are many plants in Africa that can be used for medicinal purpose, and more than 4,000 are used for this purpose in the tropical regions of Africa. Medicinal plants are used in the treatment of many disease and illness. The use of effects and which are of growing interest to Western society. Not only are plants used and chosen for their healing abilities, but they also have, they also often have symbolic and spiritual significance. For example, leaves, seeds, and twigs that are white, black, and red are seen as especially symbolic or magical and are believed to possess special properties. All right, so they got an example. One example of the medicinal plant is pygmalion, which has been used as treatment for mild, benign prostatic hyperplasia in Europe in Europe since the 1970s. Although used extensively in Africa, there is insufficient evidence for its effectiveness in treating fever, inflammation, kidney disease, malaria, stomach aches, and other conditions. In traditional African practice, the bark is made into tea, whereas elsewhere in the world it is found in powders, tinctures, and pills. All right, so also going down, says a 2008 literature survey was made to assess the botanical knowledge and uses within traditional medicine in Southern Africa for the genus Ali within the family of the Asphodelidae, or however you say it. Most common medical use were for the treatment of infection, internal parasites, digestive ailments, and injuries. Socially, the plants are used as an ingredients in taco snuff. A 2014 literature found that at least 12 palm species in sub-Saharan Africa are used in various ritual practices, including the use of palm oil and healing mixtures. All right, so this is all that I wanted to read into. Now, going down to where it talk about spirituality. It also talks about the traditional medicinal practitioners, as you can see right here. Many traditional medicinal practitioners are people without formal education who have rather received knowledge of medicinal plants and their effects on the human body from their forebears and observation. Traditional practitioners and their practices varies, but common features among them are a personal involvement in the healing process, protection of the therapeutic knowledge by keeping it a secret, and being rewarded for their services. Okay. So then up here, it talks about spirituality. Some healers may employ the use of charms, inclination, and the casting of spells in their treatment. For example, there is the belief among the Igbos of Nigeria that medicine men can implant something into a person from a distance to inflict sickness on them in a process referred to as Asingba Ugwa or Ugwu. Was it Asingba Ugwu? The remove the malignant object, the intervention of a second medicine man is typically required who then removes it by making an incision in the patient. A form of sympathetic magic is also used in which a model is made of the victim and it is believed that actions performed on the model are transferred to the victim in a manner similar to the familiar voodoo doll. The superstitious belief regarding spirits are also exploited, and people are convinced that the spirits of deceased relatives trouble the living and cause illness. In these instances, medicine men prescribe remedies often in the form of preparatory sacrifice in order to put them to rest so that they will no longer trouble the living, especially children. Mm. And it says, according to Uwanabi, according to Uwanabi, Africans hold a religious worldview which includes divine or spiritual intervention in medical practice. For example, the Kon people of Kalahari Desert believe that the great god Hishe created all things and therefore controls all sickness and death. Hishe present himself to these medicine men in dreams and hallucinations, giving them creative power. And this God is generous enough to give this power to the medicine men. They are expected to practice healing freely. The con medicine men effect a treatment by performing a tribal dance. All right, so that's some of the things they do. So when they are practicing traditional medicine, they incorporate spirituality into it as well as a way to help bring the healing, as a way to cast away bad, evil spirits from the patient or their clients. So yeah, so all that plays a part in it. Now we may think it's pseudo to the extent it is, but at the same time, it's part of traditional system. If you initiate into a spiritual system, if you live into that village or that tribe, then you will see that that's the tradition. But because we don't live in those type of cultures, we live in America. For most of us, we don't see the tradition behind it. Even, and speaking of America, even our ancestors took on some of the African practices, okay, especially here in the South. So it was very common. They took some of those African practices with them, such as using red onions and mixing it with water and sugar to help clear the cold. Some people would take some fat back from the pig and make grease out of it to help clear the skin, to get rid of the blemishes, rashes, etc. And then you have those who it's a lot of herbal remedies out there. So those are the only two I can think of. That's something that my grandmother did because she was from the country, and that's how they practiced. That's what they believed. Um, that was a part of her tradition, so she carried that on with her, but she didn't know that that came from Africa, from the slaves. All right, so you got Onamasis. Onamasis was an African man who was instrumental in the mitigation of the impact of a smallpox outbreak in Boston, Massachusetts. Okay, so his name is unknown, but he was enslaved, and in 1706 was given to the New England Puritan minister Cotton Mather, who renamed him. Onamasis name at birth and place of birth are not known with certainty. He was the first documented as living in the colonies in 1706, having been brought to North America as a slave. All right. So Mathers referred to the ethnicity of Onamasis as Gamatine, which may refer to the Koromatine, also known as Akan people of modern Ghana. Mathers saw Onamasis as highly intelligent, educated him in reading and writing with the Mather family. Okay. All right, so let's look down what it says inculation, advocacy, and controversy. So in 1716, or shortly before, Anamnesis had described to Mather the process of inculation that had been performed on him and others in his society in Africa, as Mather reported in a letter. People take juice of smallpox and cut the skin and put in a drop. In the book African Medical Knowledge, the plain style and satire in the 1721 Boston inculation controversy, Kelly Wascup wrote that Anamnesis is believed to have been inculcated at some point before being sold into slavery or during slave trade, as he most likely traveled from the West Indies to Boston. All right. The virilation method of inculcation was long practiced in Africa among sub-Saharan people. The practice was widespread among enslaved colonial people from many regions of Africa throughout the slave trade in the Americas. Slave communities continued the practice of inculation despite regional origin. All right, so the show that basically there was African people who believed in using needles and whatnot, and he happened to be one of them because he took that practice from what he learned in his native homeland, which was in Ghana, and he was a part of the Akan tribe. So that's what Anamnesis did, and he introduced that to he introduced that to his slave owner, Kai Mathers, and to help treat the smallpox disease, because smallpox was a serious disease at that time. All right, but many slaves, they did not receive vaccination when they came here, so a lot of them brought malaria over with them. So malaria is another disease, which is like a disease that comes from the mosquitoes. Okay, so when the mosquito bites you, you have to be careful with that, because sometimes they carry on a deadly disease such as malaria. And there was those of them that brought malaria over here with them, and to this day there is no cure for malaria. All right, so yeah, I just want to go over some real quick. So real quick, as you can see, that symbol right there, that is one of the medical symbols. Well, actually two of them are. So the caduceus symbol is used as a medical corpse symbol, but according to the Wikipedia article, that it is incorrect. Actually, the medical symbol is supposed to be this symbol right here. Okay, so this symbol represents the rod of Asclepius, the rod of Asclepius, which is a Greek god that represents, or the Greek deity that represents healing and wisdom. So the snake always has some type of representation. As a matter of fact, in this book that I have right here, which is called The Secrets of Signs and Symbol. So the Secret of Signs and Symbol goes into the concept of which symbols that we currently use today and that was currently used in the ancient time period, what's the meaning behind it, which is called the etiology. So etiology is the study of value of the meaning of something or an object. So any object or anything has a meaning behind them, which is the abstract meaning. So yeah. So according to this book, it says, often confused with the caduceus, the wine or rod of Asclepius is the true symbol of the medical profession. The symbol belongs to the Greek god of healing, whose name it bears. Although the origin of many symbols are indeterminate, there is a theory that the Asclepius wine came about due to the method of removal of a certain parasites that was drawn gradually from the body by winding it around a stick. However, the serpent is a powerful symbol of healing despite its toxic nature. In general, the symbol of the serpent rising up towards the top of a pole or tree is representative of matter transforming into spirit and of enlightenment. Okay. So again, the symbol of the snake represents the healing and the wisdom. All right. So secret sign and symbol. If you guys don't have this book, you need to get this book. So I have other reading materials that I won't go into, but this one's called the African American Slave Medicine. All right. So it goes into how African American were using herbal and non-herbal treatments during the time of slavery. Okay, by Herbert C. Covey. Then here's an article which is called Herbal Medicine in African Traditional Medicine by Ezekwezi Ofili, Josephine Ozama, and Okaka Antoinette and Wamaka Chingwe. All right, so it was submitted on May 20th, 2017, reviewed on July 17th, 2018, and was published on January 30th of 2019. Okay, so these are peer reviews, and the website is integopen.com. integopen.com. All right, so it's an open access peer review chapter. All right, and so it's a pretty reliable source, good information. All right. So the website again is integopen.com, and just type herbal medicines and African traditional medicine. Then I also have another book that goes into malaria. So traditional medicinal plants and malaria, which is written by Merlin Wilcox, Gerard Bodicker, and Felipe Razonavio. So it came out in 2004. So this is another book that I recommend people check out. It's called Traditional Medicinal Plants and Malaria. All right, and this one is called the Handbook of African Medicinal Plants. So it goes into like different plants that is used as medicine by Maurice M. Iwu. Okay. So that was written in 2014. And this is called Green Plants, Their Origin, Diversity, Peter Bell and Alan R. Hemsley. All right. Peter R. Bell and Alan R. Hemsley. So check that out. All right, so that's all the information that I have available. So I always want to make sure that I use sources to be able to verify things and be able to back things up. So as you can see, I am not a scientist. I'm not an educator. I'm just a person that like to present information to people. Whatever you choose to do with the information, that's on you. That is your prerogative. That is your choice. Whatever you want to do, okay? But I'm just here to just guide and just to present the sources to people. That's my only goal. But anyways, that's all I have for today. I'll be come back later on with another topic. So just tune in. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, share the channel, share the contents on here, etc., etc. And I'll talk to you guys again. This your girl Tiffany, and I'm out.